Welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. It's the 17th of October, Friday, here in Washington. Webster Tarpley reporting. Week very dense with events and full of opportunities to intervene for people of goodwill, and we'll have plenty of them. Please take notes. Get your notebooks, right? As it was once said, everybody serious carries a notebook of some kind. So here's our situation. The tax Wall Street Party is making history. The intervention of the tax Wall Street Party has, I believe, contributed to positive changes in the course of world history during this past week. You'll remember back in 2011, we didn't have the tax Wall Street Party or the United Front Against Austerity. I nevertheless supported Sherry Honkeloff for sheriff of Philadelphia. She later went on to become Green Party vice presidential candidate. But in 2011, she was talking about stopping all foreclosures as the sheriff of Philadelphia, not doing anymore. In 2012, we founded the tax Wall Street Party, United Front Against Austerity, about 2 years ago right now, right on the eve of Superstorm Sandy. In 2012, we founded it. 2013, we had candidates, Randy Credico for mayor of New York as a Democrat and then as tax Wall Street Party. This year we have at least two candidates, one independent, James Hinton in the 5th District of California, and Dan Burdorf, fine candidate in the state of Nebraska. We'll hear from both of those later. But this is now going to grow. Here are the 3 points where I think we've made a difference. The first is the situation of Kobane, the Kurds fighting the ISIS terrorists in and around the northern Iraqi city of Kobane. And the reality here is that the ISIS terrorists have been defeated despite the best efforts of the defeatist pro-terrorist cabal in the Pentagon to build them up, right? Remember the ISIS terrorists, 10 feet tall, invulnerable supermen with magical powers? They've been crushed. They've been defeated. They're running away from Kobane with their, well, whatever they have, right? They're on the run, and they should be strafed mercilessly and cut down as they try to pull back. These are butchers. These are the enemies of civilization. Don't hesitate any more than you would with any horrible enemy, right? It's in the same league with the totalitarians of the 20th century there in the mid the 30s to 40s. Now, how did this happen? The U.S. has increased the number of sorties. We're told that 122 sorties so far have been flown in and around Kobane to clobber these ISIS characters. And that's, of course, that's not enough, right? I began talking, if you look at the Tarpley.net of last week, you'll see there my statistics. The U.S. flew 100,000 sorties against Iraq in 1 month at the beginning of 1991. 3,335 sorties per day. And as of the last week, it was about 2,000 sorties against ISIS over 2 months, and that's 35 a day. So that's 1/100th of it. That's not enough. Can't you get up to 1/10 of what you did against Saddam Hussein, since this now is the end of the world, as you say? So that's the thing. We and this at the middle of the week, I began seeing for the first time on CNN actual statistics of how many sorties had been flown. And I call your attention to my Twitter feed, what a real president would tell Dempsey. Dempsey, if one more ISIS tank reaches Kobane, you're fired. You can bring in Donald Trump or whoever you want. You're fired. And start firing these Pentagon clowns, defeatists, right? In the McClellan tradition, right up there with Nathaniel Banks and Ben Butler on the military side, and some others, right? These characters not effective. And remember, the strategy of the warmongers is to maintain a phony air war and to exhaust people's patience with that, to exasperate and frustrate the public with a phony air war and then argue for the heavy ground divisions so lots and lots of people get killed and the military industrial and these Pentagon careerists and everything can get what they want. That's why we reject it. And that goes for General Dempsey, and that goes for General Allen. Remember him, the friend of Jill Kelly down there in Tampa. This is no good. He was presumably part of the Petraeus clique. He was ousted, and now Skull and Bones Kerry brought him in through the back door. And you might want to fire Kerry, too. Kerry, if you can't get Turkey to play ball, to seal that border to ISIS, to open up Incirlik for combat missions, you're fired. That's what a Secretary of State does. Now, we do have the news that the Turks are now allowing drones to be flown out of Turkey. But we want that Incirlik. And the message to skunk Erdogan is, you play ball or out of NATO. You're out. You take your chances on your own. See what the Muslim Brotherhood will do for you there. Remember, it's an axis of evil, as I was able to point out on Press TV this past week. Who is in the real axis of evil? Turkey, Qatar, the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, and their admirers, McCain, and a clique in the Pentagon who think that it's clever to play ISIS against Iran, Syria, and these other enemies. And this doesn't work. So what I'm claiming credit for is that the Tax Wall Street Party has made a significant contribution to putting the pressure on the Pentagon, on these generals by name, and also on the Obama White House. Escalate those sorties. No more phony war. I introduced the concept of the phony war in this current phase. Okay, so that's number one, and of course you got to keep that up. We'll talk about later how we're going to push forward with the arrest McCain for ISIS, and indeed that beautiful sort of photo montage we have. I have it on Tarpley.net also, of McCain actually being that masked guy that the FBI is looking for. The second point is we have this very interesting short ad for Democrats by a group here in Washington, and this is the cut. All of these Republican reactionaries, proto-fascists, yelling how they want to cut the budget, they want to cut the general welfare, and so forth. Well, I think I have to take some credit for that. And how about the idea that austerity kills, that it's killer cuts, genocidal austerity. Don't just say cuts, say killer cuts, right? The enemy says job-destroying regulations, fine. We'll attack with killer cuts, genocidal austerity. For example, the headline of this broadcast last week, or actually the United Front Radio of October 6th, austerity ghouls and killer cuts by sequestration threaten the lives of all Americans. And that is now the subject of this cut. Now, if the Democratic Party, the schmoes, would finally pick up on the cut video and use that in some of these races, they might actually get somewhere. But the idea now is the notion that if you cut the National Institutes of Health, you don't have a vaccine when you need it. Or if you cut the Texas health system, that can kill people. This is now out. And we've got one more point, which we'll get to in just a second. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, 17th of October here in Washington, D.C. Tarpley reporting. Thanks to Lionel in New York and his charming wife for the wonderful comedy evening that Lionel put on last Saturday evening in the cuttery in the cutting room in Manhattan. And this was very interesting. Lionel attacking the mayors, right? Attacking Giuliani, Bloomberg, de Blasio attacking Al Sharpton. Not easy to do in a place like this. And this is the use of comic genius as a satire against the rich, the powerful, and the evil, because that's the necessary direction of realistic satire and humor. So look, the Tax Wall Street Party makes history. We pound away on the sorties, right? 3,300 against Saddam and 30 now? No, it's not enough. Make it more like 300. Well, at least per day. At least some progress in that direction. Dempsey, Allen, and the rest of these McClellans are under pressure now. Their phony war is exposed. Continue with that. Second one is austerity kills. You can see it. If the NIH had a cure, then there'd be a cure. If Rick Perry hadn't wrecked the Texas system, we wouldn't have this chaos. Rick Perry, we'll get to him. And then the third point is this issue of divided government. We do not want the Republicans to take over the Senate. The issue is the permanent austerity dictatorship, which we must avoid. And, of course, Obama, his veto, very weak because of his weakness, because of his passivity, because of his fear. He's not going to be a strong leader to fight off a bunch of fascist Republicans in the next 2 years. And remember, all you have to do is get the Rats Cabal, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, and Scalia, +1, and you can impose the permanent austerity dictatorship. The Republicans, in spite of everything, only due to the ineptitude of the Democrats, might have president, Congress, and Supreme Court. What will they do? They will take the vote away from the black, the poor, the Hispanic, students, others, absolutely shameless, and they will wipe out unions. They will wipe out minimum wage unions and so forth. And I have to point out, China has passed the United States according to one measure of the size of the economy. This is coming from the International Monetary Fund. In reality, China has passed the U.S. a long time ago, because if you measure tangible, physical, commodity manufacturing production and agricultural production, you will find that the U.S. is way behind China. The U.S. GDP is packed with hot air, derivatives, speculation, parasitism, service economy, God knows what. But at least according to the IMF, China has passed the U.S. in an adjusted measure of gross domestic product. Thank you, Wall Street ruling class. Now, some of us are not going to let that stand. There's still the ability of the American system to revive something much worse than what we've got right now. But no matter how bad it gets, the American system can bring it back. And some of us stand ready to implement that and to fight for it. So I urge you to join us. But we do not want the permanent austerity dictatorship. We want to preserve divided government because the alternative is simply awful. We do not want a GOP-controlled Senate. Now, the Democrats are cutting a sorry figure. Where's your war room? Where's your counterpunch? What happened to that thing with, Carville, Begala, and Stan Greenberg? Stan Greenberg usefully pointed out a week or two ago that the thing that the media are hiding, and this is conspiratorial, I'm afraid, is the total unpopularity of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is hated. Why? Gridlock. The House of Representatives, the most hated branch of government, that's the Republican Party. People hate that. Then the government shutdowns, right? The party of national sabotage. And then cutting the NIH, cutting health, education, welfare, and so forth. And these governors are hated. We just saw the petulant cretin Scott, governor of Florida, refused to come out because the other guy had a fan. Oh, my God. Same goes for Walker. Those guys could be defeated, by the way. Scott and Walker, I hope, will go down because those are union busters and wage gougers. This is odious, right? This is 19th century laissez-faire Dickensian cruelty by these bums. So that's why we have to look at the media. Remember, the oligarchy controls the president. That's the big name of the game. The oligarchs, Wall Street, want to control the president. In the first term, it's easy. He needs money for re-election. They control him that way. In the second term, it is that the president is bashed and vilified and scandals and the jinx and all this stuff. But this is not automatic. This is a plan. And you see these prostitutes go along with it. Here's the good example. This latest debacle, fiasco of the past week in Dallas, Texas. Oh, boy, Dallas. And this, of course, is a place heavy with the tragic memories of 50 years ago. Just, an ineffable sadness comes over us. But now, here comes this guy from Liberia who's got Ebola, and they managed to get 2 nurses infected. They're flying around. There's another one on a cruise ship now. There are schools shut down in Ohio and elsewhere because of the incompetence of Texas. And I'm amazed that the Democrats don't pick it up, right? Every loudmouth, posturing, boot-wearing, 10-gallon hat yahoo, don't mess with Texas. Well, this is the libertarian paradise. It's, of course, the state that is, they always point to, right? This is where laissez-faire and the Austrian school really work. Wage gouging, union busting, no unions, no rights, no nothing. That's wonderful. It's also the state that has the most atrocious public health system, and starts from the fact that it has the highest percentage of people who have no health insurance of any kind, and because of the sabotage of this Perry, nothing has gotten better. We'll get to this in just a minute. But you'd think that the Democrats would get together and say, let's blame Dallas on Rick Perry, not Obama. And I'll get to this again. The Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, CDC, are not a regulatory agency. Hospitals are regulated by states. This state of Texas regulates that hospital. Perry and his gang are responsible. The GOP spreads plagues with Rick Perry. Washington, 17th of October. There are more rumblings from the Mitt Romney camp. Mitt Romney may be attempting a power grab, that the Mormon theocracy joins together with the permanent austerity dictatorship. Don't let it happen. Get that book, Just Too Weird. Bishop Romney and the Mormon takeover of America with polygamy, theocracy, and subversion. Read the part about the Paul Tard machine as a wing, as a training wheel for Bishop Romney and his campaign. So Texas is responsible for Dallas, and that means Governor Rick Perry, Senator Ted Cruz, the sallow face of hypocrisy, Senator Cornyn. Let's not forget the Paul clan, right? Ron Paul over there, and God knows who else, right? Over there in Texas. They're responsible for that hospital. What is wrong with you guys? What's wrong with quarantine? What part of quarantine don't you understand? Once you've got those people together, you can't just send them home. You've got to keep them under supervision in a place that they're not allowed to leave. Yes, indeed. That's what quarantine is. It was introduced in the 1340s in Ragusa. It became famous in Venice. You came into Venice on a ship from a plague area. You went onto a special island. There was a big building with many, many small cells. You could stay in there. You didn't have to mix with the others. And you stayed there for 40 days. That's the quarantine. And with that, you could have stopped it. But the bungling, stupid, incompetent Texas authorities, now I sympathize with them as individuals, but the killer cuts trumpeted by this Perry and his refusal of the Medicaid money and all the rest of it, this comes home to roost Where the hell is the Democratic Party? Wake up, you lily-livered, chicken-hearted, bloodless, gutless, fake opposition Democrats, you Wall Street Democrats, right? You are pathetic. Where's your coordinated counterattack on Rick Perry? Hang it on him. Otherwise, they're hanging on Obama. You could see it in the House hearings the other day. They're leaderless. They're running around like, each one is trying to save their own career. Where's the leadership? If you want leadership, turn here. We'll give it to you. We'll tell you what to do. Now, let's just look into this, right? We're going to get Obama's going to bring in Ron Klain, a venture capitalist and lawyer, just what we need. From Gore and Biden, he's their chief of staff. Maybe he was also the cocaine monitor or purveyor for young Hunter Biden, the nepotist who was also involved in dirty operations in Ukraine. There's a tremendous conflict of interest. So this is really bad. What we would need is a competent Surgeon General. Surgeon General is blocked by the fascisto Republicans. How come we haven't heard that? Where's the Democratic Party? Is there anybody at the Democratic National Committee? What's with that Wasserman Schultz? Is she still alive? So hospitals are regulated by states. At the beginning of this crisis, Rick Perry was AWOL. He went AWOL during the week. He went to Europe. Can you believe this? The state of Texas is inflicting plague on the rest of us with their incompetence in that cursed city of Dallas. And then we hear that Perry is cavorting around in Europe. He's AWOL. Did you hear that on the media? No. Did you hear it from the Democratic noise machine? Is there still one? I don't know. Concerning the question of the travel ban, right? The Republicans come down to this. First of all, there are no direct commercial flights between the United States and the three countries of Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. There are none. There are indirect flights. People can go through London, through Amsterdam, through Brussels. Now, of course, if they do that, they've got to go through the screening operations of those countries. So that gives you a little bit of an extra layer of protection, and it means that the trip is a little bit longer in a time when, 12, 24 hours might make a big difference. If you go back and look at my United Front radio interview of October 6th, I point out that the U.S. Health system is of quite high quality, but very brittle. There is no depth, and now we're seeing it, right? The NIH has 2 beds of total isolation. In Nebraska, we have 10, but you can't sterilize all of the trash coming out. Here what we ought to do, an emergency executive order allowing these hospitals and others to incinerate their bio-waste on the site. Burn it up. That takes care of it. Don't ship it around, and don't have to go through this boiling procedure. I think in Missouri there's 1 bed, Amory University, I think 4 beds. So you can see what it is, right? The U.S. has relatively few beds. This is from the MSNBC, the Mad Cow report of the other night. But these are relevant statistics, right? All these people go around saying, we have the best system. You don't have the best system. France, with a population of, 1/5 of the U.S., now has 12 centers that are accredited. Now, what that means qualitatively, I can't say at this point, but it looks more encouraging than the 4 centers. I'm absolutely in favor of sending military forces to these countries for humanitarian work. If you allow that epidemic to become a pandemic in Africa, it will spread worldwide. This is not good. Do fight it over there. Absolutely fight it over there. However, this does not mean that you have to promote intercontinental travel at this point. I think it's reasonable, if only as a matter of maintaining public order and confidence in government, to say the State Department will no longer issue a visa to anybody who is a citizen of those 3 countries, nor will we issue a visa to anybody who's got a passport where those countries show up, right? The 3 at the epicenter of this entire thing. Since there are no direct flights, this does not arise. I would recommend that transporting goods to the impacted areas be done with, as I think it is being done, sea lift and airlift from the Pentagon. Military Airlift Command and Pentagon charter flights can do the job. But let's get away from commercial aviation. And then people, there have to be quarantine facilities. That means you got to find a couple of the Motel 6s that are apparently between owners, and you can start stockpiling people there. If they're okay after 21 days, off they go. So I think that would give you something in that direction. And then I'm wondering what happened to all the hospital ships that used to exist in the world. There used to be private organizations, Medico and others, that had hospital ships. What's with Médecins Sans Frontières? Got any hospital ships? And remember, the underlying consideration, the Hill-Burton Act says you need 4.5 beds per thousand as of 1946, and we now have 3 beds per thousand. We have 5,000 hospitals left. We've lost over 1,000. We've got to start rebuilding those. The idea is that you can't have the Tea Party running this kind of policy. We don't have a vaccine, thanks to the Tea Party, thanks to you, Ted Cruz, thanks to your shutdown. How are you letting him off the hook? Democrats, journalists, what's the matter with you? Of course, the word has gone out from Wall Street. It's time to control Obama with the bashing program. Rick Perry's austerity regime in Texas is responsible for the chaos. And notice Nigeria. They point to Nigeria as a country that has defended itself reasonably well. What they practice is the most ruthless quarantine. And one wag today said, send the Nigerians to run Texas Presbyterian Hospital. Good idea. It'll be an improvement. And I would also point out the United States has a special responsibility to Liberia. The U.S. is the former colonial power. Got to take care of Liberia. So send that stuff over. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Just wrapping up on Ebola. 1,000 hospitals, state-of-the-art, large ones. That has to bring us up to 4.5 beds per thousand under the 1946 Hill-Burton criterion. I still, I shudder to think of this incompetence, this ruling class and the sheep that follow them. We need 250,000 new doctors in training right now. Otherwise, insurance will be meaningless if there's no hospital and no doctor. It is important to quarantine, of course. Quarantine simply means restrictions in behavior. There's the total quarantine where you're put into a room and told to stay there. But obviously, no bus, no train, no plane, no ship, no cruise ship, my God, no wedding planner, no bridal shop for people who are involved in this, right? And that's Texas. They let this be scattered to Ohio and all these other places, right? So Rick Perry, your head is on the block for this stuff. You've got egg on your face, and I don't understand an opposition party that can't make that connection. So this, I think, gives us the overview. Oh, Perry. What did Perry want to shut down? Anyway, remember the oops debate? Oops. Rick Perry, oops. Too bad if you died. Okay, he wanted to shut down the Commerce Department, the Department of Education, and then the leprechaun usefully suggested the EPA and energy, perhaps, right? But we don't know. Was Rick Perry about to say shut down Health and Human Services, including the National Institutes of Health? Look, you let those troglodytes, those cavemen, those alley-oops, that's him, alley-oops, let them run the show, and death will result, right? A Tea Party vote is not a harmless piece of stupidity. Now, let's turn now to the good news coming from Kobane. The Kurds are gaining. It looks like the terrorists have been driven out of the town. That's the most recent word from the Russia Today correspondent there. Please look at my Twitter for this. It's all there with links in some cases. We're now being told that Baghdad is threatened. Well, the answer to this is, did you guys ever hear of a 1,000-bomber raid? You Pentagon lunkheads, you bunglers, you guys are pathetic. You call that bombing? 1,000-bomber raid. That's where bombing begins, and 300 per day thereafter. Get those helicopters out there, strafe those roads, blow those guys away. They are the enemies of civilization. I'm sorry. There is no other way to put it. ISIS must go. And this axis of evil, remember, Turkey, Qatar, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, McCain and his military forces. We'll mention one in just a second. So the phony war, at least somewhat ameliorated. So now the Pentagon would need, and apparently they have, coordinate with the PKK Kurds on the ground, right? Supposedly terrorists. Forget that. All of that has turned over 2 or 3 times. Time for a renversement des alliances, a diplomatic revolution, ally with Iran and Syria against the axis of evil, Turkey, Qatar, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS. Ally with Egypt. They're opposed to the Muslim Brotherhood, right? General Sisi. We want Incirlik open. And remember the policy, we're being told that Turkey is demanding a dual war on ISIS and war on Assad. No, one war at a time, as Abraham Lincoln said, or ISIS first. That would have been the World War II version. So this is indeed good news. And we're also told that the U.S. has partially dropped the fiction that there is such a thing as the Free Syrian Army. Now, interesting, showing up in the middle of this, I got to take a step back. Remember, I've been talking to you about how occultists, Freemasons, and related kooks helped to create World War I, right? That entire Edward VII, George V Freemasonic network with Madame Blavatsky and Annie Besant and Madame de Thèbes and all this stuff. Well, we've got the U.S. Army Satanist Brigade, right? We've got the self-declared Satanist Colonel Aquino and his sidekick, Paul E. Vallely, who got to be a big general. So we've got reports now that Vallely, and this is a report going back some months, Vallely, retired U.S. Army Major General, leading a group of militants inside Syria, do-it-yourself military mission over there. And I'm wondering, right, when we had McCain, we know that McCain was cavorting and confabulating with a caliph, a cannibal, and a kidnapper. How about a Satanist? Were there any Satanists in that meeting? To round it out, is McCain in touch with Aquino, the Satanist? I mean, this would be interesting for voters to know, right? When you put the Republican Party in control of the Senate, McCain will have more power. He'll become the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he's got a kidnapper, a cannibal, and a caliph, and maybe a Satanist. And here's the idea now. Back in January of this year, Vallely, according to various sources here, I'll link to them on the Twitter feed. Vallely told the Tea Party Patriots of Surprise, Arizona on December 3rd that he could lead a military coup. This takes us back to the 1930s. Here's what Vallely says. I had a call this afternoon from Idaho, and the guy said, I'll give you 250,000 Marines to go to Washington. Will you lead them? And he said, yes, I will. I'll surround the White House and I'll surround the Capitol building, and it's going to take a physical presence there. This is the Morgan coup. This is the coup of 1937-38, and it's also the Sviatsky Connecticut Russian fascist coup of about 1942, the one with Thomas Dodd the Elder as the prosecutor. Valeli, isn't this interesting? So what you're seeing is the same kind of network. Freemasons, occultists, irrationalists, warmongers, people like von Moltke, who brought you that war, are going to bring you another war. So, but right now, for the moment, the myth of the invincibility of ISIS, right? Invincible supermen, 10 feet tall, with magical powers. This is out the window. They've been bombed. Several hundred have been killed, right? It could have been more, but that's for starters. Now, I've urged people, this arrest McCain for ISIS with the hashtag and the 4. This has to go viral. You have got to get engaged. You can't just be a spectator out there. This has got to be in the social media. Also, selfies, photographs with famous people. Arrest McCain for ISIS. Get behind some senator, put it on there, embarrass the hell out of the guy, create a stir. Go to landmarks, the Colosseum in Rome, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Brandenburg Gate, Big Ben in London. You get the idea. The Arches of St. Louis, the Golden Gate in San Francisco, the Hollywood sign, the Statue of Liberty, Tiananmen, the Ginza in Tokyo, the Christ statue over Buenos Aires, on and on. We need to send this thing around the world. I appeal to you. Don't sit around and let this happen. The Republican Party is extended to an unbelievable degree. They're offering the flank. Pile on that flank. Bash them. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio, the second hour of our show here, recording on Friday, the 17th of October. Now, we want to go immediately, without further ado, to Benton Harbor, Michigan, and get the overview on what's happening there, right? Remember that Reverend Edward Pinckney had been leading the effort to have a recall election to oust the Whirlpool Wall Street corporatist mayor Hightower, and then, of course, a counterattack, a frame-up operation against Reverend Pinckney, gathering signatures, and I believe we're still headed towards a trial, and the big issue is, can we get the expert witness who is the handwriting expert, right, the graphologist, to come in there and show the truth, which is that Reverend Pinckney is absolutely innocent, and this is all a frame-up. So, welcome, Reverend.
Well, Webster, welcome to you, and thank you so much. And we do have enough money to bring them in. Matter of fact, the documents is already in her hands as of today. We will be going to court Monday to make sure they allow her to come in and testify. According to them, that we had a window of 45 days before the trial, and they're trying not to allow her to testify on my behalf. But we're fighting this thing. We're going to be there Monday, and we're going to show them that we're prepared to go forward. If you want the truth, let the truth be told, and that's what we're gearing this program for. Also, I have some more news. Thanks to your show, I was able to get that tool and to cut the water back on, and this week alone, we have cut on 17 people water that was cut off, and they was able to use it, and it's still on today. So we've been, I tell you, if you have, your show have really, really, really helped me win this battle that we're about to win. And I really, really appreciate that. But next week, next Thursday, we will be picking the jury. Regardless what happens, this trial is going forward. I could not see them trying to stop it, even though they know that they should have went out and got a handwriting expert rather than me having to do it, because that way we wouldn't be talking about this today. But we continue this fight, and on tomorrow, I'm going to be meeting with the United Nations in Detroit, Michigan, not only to talk about my case, but also to talk about the water issue that's going to be going all around the country. So,
you say the United Nations.
That's correct. I will be meeting with them tomorrow at 3 p.m. in Detroit. The address is 600 Lafayette. It's the Acme Union building that we're going to be in. So that's tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be meeting with them to talk about the situation here in Benton Harbor and to talk about the situation in Detroit. They heard about some of my struggles, and they want to sit down with me and find out how they can help. Because we know that they're violating the human rights of the people, not only here in Benton Harbor, but also in Detroit. And we have to show them, they know we don't have the resources to actually fight like we should, but we are putting up a gallant battle. Even this trial is so tremendous, Webster, that they never thought that something like this would go on, because this attorney he's a very expensive attorney, and he knows, like he told me, hey, he needs $10,000. He got to have $10,000 by the 27th. So I told him that we would do what we can. If I have to put my house up, or whatever I need to put up, I'm going to do it and make sure he has that money. So I'm working hard. I'm doing things. I'm trying to make sure people understand that this is just not a fight here in Benton Harbor. It's not just a fight in Detroit. It's not just a fight in the state of Michigan. This thing is all over the country, and I stand with the people in this country to fight this battle.
Reverend, I gotta ask you a couple of questions now. If you're meeting with the United Nations, is that the United Nations human rights?
That is correct, human rights.
Okay.
That's tomorrow at 3 p.m.
So Saturday, the 18th at 3 p.m.
Right. The address is 600 Lafayette.
In Detroit.
In Detroit.
And here's what I would ask, right, to people of goodwill out there in the ether. It would be very important for this to be brought up at the State Department briefing. That Jen Psaki and that Harf should be made to answer. What's the State Department comment on the United Nations Human Rights Authorities meeting with Reverend Pinckney in Detroit, right? Does the U.S. government have a view about that? And, of course, why don't they get in there and enforce some humanitarian law on water and other issues? Now, let me ask you also, the opposition in the court is what, the district attorney?
District attorney.
The district attorney.
District attorney, he's my opposition, and he's going for the throat. All week long, he's been trying to figure out a way how to jail me before the trial. First, they had accused me of threatening all the Barron County commissioners falsely, knowing that I did
Ridiculous.
not. Now, when you have the sheriff and 4 deputies in the audience, why would I threaten you? It doesn't make any sense.
It's crazy. Now, let me ask you another one. In terms of the election, right, we're getting reports that Governor Snyder may be in trouble. But what about Benton Harbor? Is there going to be anything on the ballot? Did Marcus Muhammad get on the ballot, or
no,
where do we stand?
No. There will be nothing on the ballot until next year. No commissioners will be on the ballot this time around. Not one. Because we have it like every odd year. Rather the major election for the presidency, we have election. Then we have election rather the government. They're very seldom at the same time.
So it's going to be November 2015 on that.
That is correct. November of 2015, and we're going to be. And this gives us more time to prepare. Because it's better that we put boots on the ground and fight this battle rather than try to allow them to just manhandle us with all the money that the corporation is going to be pouring into their candidate, the puppet, Jim Lowtower. Some people may call him Hightower. We call him Lowtower.
All right. I appeal to everybody listening, right, especially people overseas. Focus attention on Benton Harbor, Michigan, and Reverend Edward Pinckney, and go to your foreign ministry, right? Paris, Quai d'Orsay, Foreign Office, Auswärtiges Amt, right? La Fatnezina. Go to those foreign affairs ministries and at their briefing ask, what's the attitude of the French, German, Italian, and British governments to this human rights situation. And now, Reverend, we got a couple of minutes left. You got to tell us how to help. It's not easy to go before the United Nations, so we got to have some funding. So please tell people how they can kick in.
You can go to bhbanco.org. That's bhbanco.org. There's a PayPal right there, and you can go right there and push the button, and then you can see some of the stuff the work that we're doing on there. Also, you can mail me a check. You just make a check out to Banco. We're 501c3. That's BANCO, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. That's Banco, BANCO, 1940 Union Avenue, Benton Harbor, Michigan, 49022. Or the website is usually the best one. Go there. PayPal is there. And don't forget, October 27th, my birthday. So those of you who want to send me a birthday gift, please don't hesitate. And I will be in court, and we plan on having a full house. If you live close to Michigan, go to 811 Port Street, St. Joseph, Michigan. That's 49085. Or you can call me at 269-925-0001. Webster, thank you so much. I tell you, I couldn't do the work I do without you. You have been tremendous to
Thank you. It's an honor to be able to contribute, Reverend. Thank you so much.
You
keep fighting till next week, and we'll be back to get more news.
Yes.
Bye. So back in 1 second now on radio. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Well, that's a highly interesting report from Reverend Pinckney. So it's going to be the United Nations Human Rights Authorities meeting with Reverend Pinckney in Detroit, 600 Lafayette Street, 3 p.m. on Saturday. That's about the time this broadcast reaches many listeners, but I'll put it out on Twitter. That would be Saturday the 18th at 3 p.m., 600 Lafayette Street, Detroit. But now let's hurry on to Nebraska. A big campaigning week in Nebraska, and once again we have the pattern. Ben Sass runs to get out of debates because he has nothing to say, and Dan Berdoff wants to get into debates because he's got plenty to say. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, Webster. Thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Every week.
All right. Well, I'm excited today because after this interview, I'm going to run off to a meeting with one of my consultants, Brad Wilson, from the National Family Farm Coalition. Brad's an Iowa farmer,
right,
and he consulted with me on my campaign a little earlier, especially when I was preparing for debates and things like that. And Brad's a writer, and he has a lot of articles on farm policy. You can find those at zcom.org if you search Brad Wilson. And he has lots of charts at under his name, Brad Wilson, on slideshare.net. And he also has an educational channel on YouTube. And I'm telling you this for the benefit of your listeners. That YouTube channel is, I think, called Fireweed, but you can find it on if you search Brad Wilson's name. So just wanted to give your listeners a chance to keep up with what we're doing here. I heard you mentioned Mr. Sass is running to get out of debates, and we had a really funny parody by one of our friends on Twitter, Jeff Ritherden. His Twitter handle is @IHopeToWin, and he put out a very funny meme. Mr. Sass has been complaining this whole campaign, with tongue-in-cheek complaining that he has to drive around the state in a used RV. He doesn't mention that it has a custom paint job and it looks pretty fresh. But, the rest of us that don't have RVs to drive around in, it's funny that Jeff Ritherden put out this meme. You can find it on my Twitter page, and the RV breaks down, and Mr. Sass is happy that he doesn't have to go to any more debates. It's pretty funny.
I think I've actually retweeted that, so
great.
You can get that wonderful at Tarpley as well.
Well, we would love to have that RV if he's done with it, because right now we're in the red on our side of this campaign, and mostly due to transportation costs, but that's to be expected. But we're still pushing ahead with the program, why we're doing it is because our campaign's in the red, but there are a lot of people that are dependent on the social safety net in Nebraska and in America that are even more in financial trouble than we are. That's for sure, and that's why we want to bring Wall Street sales tax to the fore. We want to have infrastructure building and 30 million new jobs. We want to have parity pricing, which I'm going to talk to Brad today about, to put a floor under farmers.
Absolutely.
We're going to have tariffs to protect American jobs and industry. So we're still pushing ahead. We've got a lot of issues like Medicare for All, where we've got to have affordable, humane, responsive to the public type of medical care for Americans. And we're talking about affordable student loans that'll invest in the future of America so that we can turn this country back into a very strong, productive economy. And so those are some of the issues we're working on, and we're still pushing forward for Nebraskans and for the sake of all Americans, I hope.
Absolutely. What else is going on in the campaign? You've been contacting a lot of groups.
Yeah, we're working with a lot of groups. We've been working over the weeks with some of the poverty groups in western Nebraska, and we're also working with a lot of peace groups. And part of our platform is a global peace race, which I have on my site, danfornebraska.com. And it's true that war is an engine of austerity, and that's one of the reasons why we got involved in some of these measures to stop austerity, such as the Wall Street sales tax, the infrastructure program, parity pricing, and tariffs. And we want to have my global peace race idea is a plan to cooperate and compete with countries who are looking for a productive world. It's more than just Nebraska, more than just America. We have to look at the whole world in a sense. And we need to have a productive world where people can all live, with dignity. And that's going to start at home. And I hope we can start it in Nebraska and, carry it through for the whole nation. So please, if anyone has
excellent idea.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If anyone has a chance to go to danfornebraska.com, I would really appreciate the support on that.
And, of course, to contribute, right? Because the Army travels on its stomach, and a contribution right now would be a very big plus, right? Because otherwise, in that campaign, not that many ideas. I'm noticing that the Democrat Domina continues to borrow your platform, if I may say.
Well, we're flattered by that, I guess. We're flattered by that. Mr. Domina has a lot of resources to his available to him, so I hope that he can push as hard as we are with his, proportionately with what he can put out to stop this candidacy of Ben Sasse. There was and I have to give Mr. Domina credit. He did point out on his tweet this week that the Club for Growth made a statement on their farm bill earlier this year where they said the time for reform is now. We need to put farm subsidies on a path to elimination, and we need to devolve food stamps to the state level where they belong. With $17 trillion in debt, the American taxpayers don't have time to wait. And I say that hardworking taxpayers have an economic right to that part of the social safety net, the SNAP and food stamps, and all parts of the social safety net. And this was recognized by past administrations, by Congress, and even in the Atlantic Charter. So the Club for Growth is wrong on this point, in that quote that I just read, and their candidate, Ben Sasse, is wrong. And, of course, I mention this because the Club for Growth is one of Mr. Sasse's largest contributors.
Club for Growth is the gaggle of very bad economics, austerity.
We're in dire straits, so any support could be helpful.
We'll repeat the information. See you next week, Dan.
Thank you,
Good
sir,
luck.
for having me.
And we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. It's Friday the 17th of October. And now we want to go, without further ado, to Napa, California. The issue here is the congressional race in the 5th Congressional District of California, Napa, Sonoma, and the wine country. This is now misrepresented by Mike Thompson, a tool of the Pelosi machine, somebody who has covered up for the intelligence community, the NSA, voted for bailouts. But let's get it all right from the opposition candidate, the challenger, increasingly seen as a realistic alternative to Thompson, and that's James Hinton out there in Napa. Welcome, James.
Hi, Webster. Thanks for having me on.
I would suggest, if we could, if you want to go through those reasons that you're giving out, you get a very effective poster.
Hey, Webster, before we go through these reasons, I want to let you know what's going on right now.
Fine.
Everybody out here is asleep. Nobody's talking about this election, period. There's no hot issues on the ballot. You know, there's no big races really going on that people are excited about. So what we're trying to encourage is a national army of telephone calls. Anybody who wants to help us out right now from anywhere in the United States who's got free minutes can email me at james@hintonforcongress.com, or you can email hintonforcongress@gmail.com. Email us, and me or Daniela Walls, everybody knows Daniela Walls, we'll get back to you and tell you how you can help out on the phone. We have about 19 days, 18 days left before the election. We have an opportunity to influence a lot of people who are asleep, people who are used to, you know, who really wants to wake up to hear the same old rhetoric from the two parties that don't really understand our opportunity here, okay? We have the best platform in the country. We have a platform aimed to create millions of new, high-wage, productive jobs. This is the best platform out there. The problem is not many people know about it. So everybody can help out on the telephones, okay? Send me an email. Email me, james@hintonforcongress.com, or you can email hintonforcongress@gmail.com. But email us, and me or Daniela will call you back and train you. We got 18 days left to go. Let's steal this election, grassroots, the old-fashioned way. If you want to help out and donate for more flyers and signs, visit my website, hintonforcongress.com. Check it out. There's a donate button. I want to thank everybody so far who has donated. You can follow my Twitter at Hinton for Congress, right? Hinton with the number 4, Congress. Or check out my Facebook page, which is James Hinton for Congress. 4 words on Facebook, right? James Hinton for Congress. That's our Facebook page. You're going to see all weekend new signs. Make wine, not war. You're going to see more of the Thompson poster getting larger and larger. Okay, we all know about the Thompson poster. Thompson voted for the Wall Street bailout. Thompson covered for Petraeus and the CIA by saying no crimes were committed in Benghazi. That contradicts a lot of stories we've heard. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Thompson voted to protect Monsanto from regulations. Thompson voted to allow more NSA illegal wiretaps and email snooping. Even though he's on the intelligence board, even though he knew they were out of control, running wild on us, he voted against his party lines, okay? That's bad. So anyways, he's just another Wall Street hack. You look at his money he's gotten this year, okay? He's gotten money from CME Group, which is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That's the big derivatives market where it's just ruining our economy, helping out Wall Street.
James, that's exactly where the whole thing almost blew up this week, was the futures ridiculous. On the Chicago Merc. So these are the worst guys of all.
That's right. We want to avoid that in the future, these scares, okay? And that's where the Wall Street sales tax, all right? There will be no scares out of 1%, right? Because we'll have it all, our social safety nets will be protected by this, okay? So that's why it's important. But then you got, let's look at Ernst & Young, okay? What is Ernst & Young? They're a London group, okay? Why is London given money to our congressman in Napa? Tell them about Ernst & Young, Webster, and how that helps out for your taxes.
I mean, if you want to hide money, if somebody like Mitt Romney or somebody of this caliber wants to hide money overseas, you go to a good accountant.
What if you were Paul Pelosi? Would he use them?
Paul Pelosi, there we go. Paul Pelosi might go to Ernst & Young and say, where can I stash my money so I won't have to pay taxes? And that would include, all these offshore places. And also, how can I do tax dodges here at home? That's what they'll tell you.
Yeah, well, if I get elected, I don't know where Paul's registered to vote at and who he's going to vote for in this election, but he's definitely got a house out here in my district, and he's going to be one of the most unhappy customers if I pull the rabbit out of the hat here and win this election and steal it, okay? There's 18 days left to go. No one's voted yet. The election is by no means over. Okay, there's plenty of opportunity for us to steal this. It is the best program out there. It speaks for itself. The 1-2 punch of tax Wall Street. And then you close it out with nationalize the Federal Reserve. We can all agree that is very important at this time, So anybody can help out.
If you've got student loans, you want to have them refinanced at 0%. That would be the way.
That's right. Let's get them down to 0%. Give our American students the same economic rights as Wall Street zombie banks. They get 0%. They're insolvent. All they have is bankrupt derivatives. Right. Instead, our American students, let's invest in them. Let's give them that same economic opportunity as we give Bank of America, as we give Wells Fargo. All right? Let's give them to Jose Rodriguez. Let's give them to Joe Smith. Okay? Let's give them to Maria Sanchez. Let's give them to everybody, Webster. Same economic rights as Bank of America and Washington Mutual.
Excellent. And of course, if you defeat Thompson, he's so close to Pelosi. I think Paul Pelosi probably registered.
That's right.
Where Nancy Pelosi lives, which would be in San Francisco. But maybe she'll get discouraged and give up and retire, right? Maybe they'll decide it's not worth it.
Well, let me tell you something. If we can steal this election right now, there are so many people out there across the world that want to get rid of Thompson and Pelosi. You join my campaign right now to remove Thompson this year, which he's a sitting duck. It's easy to do. We've got the dirt on him. Nobody knows it. All we got to do is spread the word, and it'll take care of itself. The votes will come my way. But you help us this year get rid of Thompson. We'll take this. I will take this blueprint right over to Pelosi's district, and we'll get rid of her in 2016. And we could do that across the board. You want to get rid of your congressman you don't like? We're going to set a blueprint here in this district how to remove
James Hinton is the way. Absolutely.
Grassroots, baby. Let's do this.
Okay. Great spirit. As always, a great fighter, great voice, and a great cause. James Hinton in Napa. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the final segment here of World Crisis Radio. I would salute Reverend Edward Pinkney of Benton Harbor, Michigan, who is now the internationally recognized or an internationally recognized spokesman for the human rights crisis in austerity land, Michigan, with emergency managers, human rights trampled, Governor Rick Snyder, that emergency manager in New York who wants to sell everything off. So that is Saturday, October 18th. It's the first day this is on the air. 600 Lafayette Street, Detroit at 3 p.m. Check the address on my Twitter, Webster G. Tarpley. Now, very quickly, got to cover a lot of ground in the end, as so often happens. Remember, the program here is, what do we want? Arm the Kurds. Put the diplomatic pressure on Turkey, Saudis, everybody in the Gulf Cooperation Council. You drop ISIS or we drop you. You're finished. You're on your own. Take your chances. The 1,000-bomber raid on ISIS. Helicopter strafing. One observer said, where is shock and awe when we need it? Let's see some shock and awe against terrorists. Because these are terrorists. And we're told, ISIS is creating an air force. Bomb it to kingdom come. So there we are. Now, let's look at the financial situation. This past Tuesday, we had a series of what was estimated to be 179 mini crashes in the morning trading. This was the day when the Dow went down 470 points, almost 500 points in one day. Now, what's the starting point? The oil price is falling, as I pointed out last week. Why is it significant if the oil price is falling? Because it is a world contraction. You look at those bad economic statistics from Germany. Remember, that's one of the two lungs of world exports. Japan and Germany, the premier exporting economies. When they go bad, it means the whole world economy is going bad. I think we're dealing with a contraction of economic activity, a contraction of employment and production, a real contraction. This is not some chimera in the derivatives world, although it then turns into that. Saudis are said to be overproducing because they want to whack the frack. They want to shut down the frackers. But what it points out is that the fracking is anti-economical. The only way these frackers can survive is if the whole energy price structure is unrealistically high. Strangling production, no good. Fracking, no good. It's a dead end. It's a blind alley for our economy. Go for high-quality modern nuclear, and above all, go for thermonuclear fusion power. There's also an idea that you can slam Russia and Iran by driving down the price. And the effects of all of this are multiplied through derivatives. And the derivatives are about as bad, or they're worse than they've ever been. On the morning in question, what happened? We're told that there were asset liquidations. This was my guess. I got to it ahead of Art Cashin on CNBC. The hedge funds are on their way to extinction. The CalPERS, right, the California Pension Fund says no more derivatives. Indeed, they're not reliable. There are hedge fund hyenas, locust funds, vulture funds. They're execrated and hated around the world. But the problem was that on this morning, there was a huge dump of assets, distressed merchandise, you name it. And this then turned into margin calls, right? It was driving down asset prices, and it became a self-feeding spiral. In other words, what we're faced here is we are now in the era of flash trading and high-frequency trading and super-duper program trading. What does that mean in a falling market? Because we've never seen this kind of volatility together with the presence of so many flash boys. Now, we've had crises every 2 years or so. Remember, May 2010, flash crash. Go back and look at it. Go back to see what I had to say on RT about it. Then, Night Capital in the summer of 2012. Night Capital, with a K, went belly up. It blew. It had about 1/5 of the entire U.S. stock markets, NYSE and NASDAQ. A trading error, we're told, lost $500 million, and it had to be merged. I'm sure there was a backdoor bailout from Helicopter Ben, but you get the idea. So on that morning, a huge amount of assets are going to be liquidated. This is a hedge fund in trouble with a fire sale. And the margin calls then follow. People are driven below their level. They get a margin call. They say, put up more money or we sell you out. Low liquidity, and this became self-feeding. The 179 mini crashes, this comes from a company called Nanex. They say if you have 10 down ticks and the price goes down by 0.8% in 1.5 seconds, that counts as a mini crash for them. But this is the worst since the Knight Capital Group of July, August 2012. One of the big losers was Walt Disney, down 7% on no news. So the high-frequency trading also creates the illusion of liquidity, right? It makes you think there's money there, and there is not. So what are we going to do? This obviously comes up with the basic things. Ban flash trading. Make it illegal. Do it as an NYSE regulation, and then let New York State and or Congress do it. But ban it. Stop it. You've got to ban high-frequency trading. You've got to ban program trading. It is now time to carry out my program, outlaw collateralized debt obligations, outlaw credit default swaps, outlaw those exchange-traded funds that are based on energy derivatives that are described by Professor Greenberger of the University of Maryland. Above all, institute a 1% Wall Street sales tax. That will cool down the entire thing. With a 1% Wall Street sales tax, there simply will be no high-frequency trading. Seize the Fed. If you can't seize all of it, seize part of it. Open up that infrastructure window. $5 trillion of infrastructure money. Buy those 0% coupon century bonds from the states, the counties, and the cities. Start building those shovel-ready projects. But it's only tangible, physical infrastructure. Build that maglev, right? Let the Japanese build it from Boston to Washington, or better yet, from Bangor to Miami and on from there, everywhere. We need 30 million jobs, and as the racial troubles of the summer show us, we need minimum 5 million holiday and summer jobs. Thanksgiving coming up, Christmas after that. During Christmas, kids that are out of school should have jobs. Otherwise, problem, but big emphasis for spring vacation next year and, of course, the summer. There is a danger of deflation. That, of course, is one of the worst possible things. Watch out for the libertarians. The secret love, the desire of every libertarian is to have a total deflationary crash. That libertarian has money. He thinks that if you're wiped out in a deflationary crash, he'll continue to have money and he can buy you at bargain basement prices. So we'll be following this. But what you're seeing is the first time that you've got significant turbulence in the era of flash trading in the past 2 years. So this looks extremely ominous. I would recommend defensive positions. And let's also talk seriously. If you have bitcoins, now's the chance to jettison those bitcoins. Gold is imperishable, as General de Gaulle said. Gold is imperishable. Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. And honor the memory of Phil Sheridan, October 19th, Battle of Cedar Creek, finished off Jubal Early and ended the 1864 campaigns, assuring the re-election of Abraham Lincoln in November. We'll talk about this more next week. But hats off to Phil Sheridan and his great horse, Rienzi. Back next week.